and welcome to another American TESOL Presents Free Friday webinars. We're here every other Friday thanks to AmericanTESOL.com. We offer certification courses for teaching TESOL Advanced. Also, we have the one for teaching young learners, teaching technology, the one that I designed and I'm the instructor for. And also, we have one about teaching business English. So today we're going to look at some collaborative language learning activities and tools. But mostly these kinds of tools are going to be especially great if you're planning a global collaboration project, or if you're getting students to work in small groups, then these will be really helpful as well. I know for some of us that are in this webinar, and for those of you watching, that you probably like to have collaboration tools yourself to be able to run some of the events, host some of the events, or do some of the projects that you already do. And so the tool can be something that's really important because it's a way that it makes collaboration, communication, and completing tasks, and also team management much easier. But another part of that is also knowing what it takes to make a team work, and that's part of all of this as well. So although the tools are important, especially finding good free ones that save you time and that are efficient and effective, what's even more important is for us to really think about and help our students gain the skills to be able to collaborate with each other. And so I think it's really important that when we do take the time and are able to teach our students how to have good teamwork, because, and sometimes that's really tough. So the first couple of times, it may not be particularly easy to accomplish this with students, but then after a while, you'll find the more pair and group work and collaboration that they're able to do is really quite when they're able to employ all of this, then it becomes very effective, and it's a skill that they're gonna absolutely need in a world that is connected. So now that they're connected with their devices, a lot of different businesses have global teams or have teams sometimes even work from home, so they're going to have to know how to use these tools as well. I think it's a good start to look at Kagan's cooperative learning keys, because these can be really important when making sure that it's cooperative collaboration. And what do we mean by cooperative? Well, when you think of Kagan, you often think of a puzzle, and we know how when you take one piece of the picture isn't complete. And so Kagan likes to add a few keys to make sure that he looks at every single person as a piece of that puzzle. And so if one person is not completing their task or isn't included for some reason, then the whole entire big picture doesn't work. And I think that that's really important too. Students complain because, of course, it's really hard, especially when you're someone who does really well in school or worries about grades like I used to be able to rely on others. Sometimes you want the ability to be able to take over and do everything to make sure you get a good grade. But it's more important to learn how to be able to be cooperative and collaborative. So these are the keys he talks about. He talks about positive interdependence. That means that to make sure that each of them know what their tasks are, and to be able to have an important task that does matter. In other words, not thinking, okay, well, this person is, we think, oh, okay, this person, this student usually does well. They're an A student, so they get the most important task. And the other person, we're just going to, say something like, edit, and then we're going to be able to do that if he doesn't get it done. So things like that. It's important that all of them are able to take charge, but also that everyone is also able to realize that they all have certain skills to be able to to be able to contribute to a project or a task. And so that's what it means by positive interdependence. Accountability, in other words, coming up with different types of roles that they can count on each other, give duties, make sure that that they each realize how important it is that they complete their piece for the whole entire group to be able to really succeed. Interpersonal and group skills is really important. So even if a lot of us believe that we are antisocial, or maybe we're, we don't like to interact with a lot of others, there's many people who talk about that. It's still really important that we learn how to thrive in a group. It's important that we get those group skills. We understand things like team management. We understand to be able to build relationships and how groups work, because that's going to be a skill all of us need. Whether, we don't necessarily like to work in groups, it's still something we will have to do at some point, especially when we're connected so much with technology. Supportive interaction, where we each are very positive, and then evaluation and reflection. I think that's one of the most important keys of cooperative learning that we can really use for collaboration, to be able to, at the end of it, go and say, okay, this is how we did as a group this time. This is, evaluating each person anonymously, and also really truly reflecting on even your own contribution to the group. And that can be something, even if you did a lot of work, sometimes we might think, okay, this student did the most work. So being able to reflect on that and say, why did I end up doing the most work? Did I not allow others? Did I not trust others to be able to contribute? Did I not delegate tasks? Did I not recognize and support others? So it's true evaluation and reflection, not only of everyone else, but more importantly of yourself and how your group did, and why, what part you played in that. What was your strengths, and what was ways that for next time, and that's always part of the evaluation and reflection. How are you going to improve the next time around, and to be able to put those ideas to work? So definitely part of those keys that we just talked about with Kagan, part of that is roles and responsibilities. I have that in my book, Learning to Go. These are the 4 that I've come up with. There's a lot more, but since I usually have teams of 3 or 4, I try not to go more than 3 or 4, then this is the task that I usually have. I have the roles of a team leader, an organizer, a deliverer, and reporter. Especially with technology, I find that these roles work. Of course, you're familiar with a team leader. The organizer is someone sort of like the person who takes notes, who's also going to write down, when things are due, who does them, tries to make sure that they get feedback from, that they keep the others on task. And the deliverer is someone, especially when you're working with technology, that makes sure that all the tasks are able to be submitted to the professor for assessment. So if you're making a video, then they'll make sure that the video's there, the script that you plan the video, and anything that the instructor requires, they make sure gets to the instructor, whether it be through a folder, or maybe they turn in a flash drive, depending on your methods of collecting. So that's the one person. The reporter is the one that takes notes during when it's important, or during feedback time, make sure everybody gets their points in. And also is the one that at the end, if you have them present, let's say they create a video, they're doing a newscast, then they're able to present that quite quickly, like in 2 minutes. They're able to go up, they're able to talk about what roles each of them played really quick, why they chose that particular topic to report the news about, how they went about that. And they do this in a very fast, and they're the ones who report. They report what happened, what they did, and they're the presenter. Now, Peggy George asked an important question. Do you rotate those jobs? Yes, that is important to rotate the jobs, because at one point or another, you're going to have to play one of those roles. And even in the bigger picture, let's say that they never have to work on a team in their business or any kind of future job. Even on social media, even as a student in the future, they will have to play these. They will have to present sometime. They will have to organize themselves. That's going to be a skill that's really important. Having the ability to delegate tasks, knowing how to submit different types of activities, whether it's an audio, how are you going to get that MP3 if you record it and it ends up being, a different type of file, how you convert that. So they're going to need to know every single one of those skills are going to come into play at some point in their lives. So definitely, that's a very good question, that each of them gets to rotate that job just so they have experience. This is what it looks like. You can give them little cards, note cards. That seems to be a really popular method, to give them an index card. You can laminate those index cards with those roles, so that way you can always continue to give them that card. Every time that they have a group task, then it automatically reminds them of those roles. I usually give them a sheet like this, like a Google Doc. You can print it, and then they put the name, they put their member roles, and things like that. A lot of collaboration is done on the cloud. And what do I mean by the cloud? Well, there's actually, I think this is a great picture, because there actually is a cloud. It's this invisible cloud, but it is somewhere in the universe, and it's invisible. But what it is it's servers everywhere that actually, when you're allowed to collaborate on any kind of document that's collaborative, even free, and Google is one of those, then you're able to, and you can learn more at shellyterrell.com/Google, that you're able to when you're working on something, then it's so powerful that, for example, someone like Maria or Tiziana could be working with me on this presentation. Let's say we're all working on this presentation, and it'll not only can we all three work in real time, but it'll update it in real time, and it'll store it in this cloud. So we're working on these different devices, but it's all being changed in this cloud, and it's saving it. And let's say, for example, one of our team members, let's say NTP comes later, or Anna, and they're in different countries, so they can't work on it at the same time we do. When they do work on it, it updates all in this magical cloud. So it's really amazing, and it's a great way to collaborate. Google's not the only one. There's also some other ones. There's Onenote, there's Microsoft has a lot of these tools, and they're really great. I think I have some Microsoft I'll show in a little bit. They've really helped add some features that make it especially great for language learners, and so I think that that's really important. It saves a lot of time as well. As Peggy mentions in the chat box, there's no more mailing emails back and forth, and so it's really fantastic. It's a great way to organize. You can have students begin by brainstorming using Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Drawing. You can find a lot of the free templates for brainstorming where all students can work together with another teammate of mine, which is Kelly, and she's amazing. Not only do I work with her in different courses, she edits a lot of the things that I do, but she also has this wonderful blog where she gives a lot of the free templates she has created with her students. And so she explains to you what the template is for the brainstorming process. She also has, what are the possible uses, and then she gives you the template that you can just copy and edit. So it's a really wonderful resource. The other one, Eric Kurtz, also has a blog called controlaltachieve.com. I use a lot of his different templates as well. He uses Google Draw, Google Docs, and the same thing. You can just copy it. The students, I just, send it to the students. They copy the template, and then they edit it to get the job done. TCA also has tons of Google templates for students. They're easy to teach with. They're easy for collaboration, and so there's so much that they can do. They can even do fun games that And so part of collaboration is also getting students to be able to see the value in working with others. And also part of that is developing trust. And trust is through relationships. And the best way to do that is to have icebreakers or fun activities where students can collaborate that aren't necessarily graded. So here, this is a really fun one. This is Google Drawings, Chess, and Checkers. So they can even play different types of games as well. Here's a really fun activity where students get to make a yearbook together. They get to add their different memories and pictures. They get to, decide the look, the stickers, the font, design. So it's really awesome because all of these you can click on and then your students can edit it. So it saves you so much time as a teacher. I really like to emphasize the importance of using templates because that's really what saves me tons of hours creating all of this myself. I talked a little bit earlier about Onenote, onenote.com, and there's learning tools by Microsoft that are really fantastic and wonderful for students. There are things, and not only is it like Google Docs where you're able to go and you're able to, work together in a blank document, but there are so many things you can do. If you use the learning tools, then students have access to picture dictionaries. They have access to where it highlights what is an adverb, what is the part of speech. And if your students are dyslexic, then what it'll do is it'll change everything that's being worked on into a friendly font for those who have dyslexia. So they're able to read it and do better. They have so many features like that. It's amazing. So I think it's really great. Even though you've used Google Docs for a really long time, you may want to try for some of the brainstorming activities or some of the activities now of collaboration, especially if you have students that are language learners and those that do have different types of learning needs. There are so many tools if you use the learning tools on OneNote, and they're free, so that's amazing. So I would recommend trying that. So this is what it looks like. You can see here, it even says the syllables. It even says, you just click all of this. It'll read it aloud as well. There's so many ways that you can use this immersive reader, and it is phenomenal. So I really do think you should go ahead and give that a try with your students and see how they do, having all those helpful features as well. I should note that now I just started as and it's free for everyone, so that's really wonderful, but I just started as a consultant for Microsoft's learning tools. So if you have any ideas to make it even better, let us know, and I will get that out to the team. Okay, so I'm really excited because I'm really excited to see the great things it can, even better. It already does amazing things, but how to make it even work better. So these are actually students that I taught. They were creating a video together, so this is what it looks like when they are collaborating. First, they brainstorm, and brainstorm looks a lot like that. Brainstorm looks like when they can have one device, look, one person's drawing, the other are adding ideas. They even put a little character. They didn't have to do all that, but this is the way collaboration looks like. Collaboration doesn't necessarily mean, it can look in different ways, but notice how all of them are part of it. They're all together. They're all interested, engaged in adding ideas, which is what you want to make sure they do. So ways that they can do collaborative, that they can collaborate together is they can create a mind map together. So that can be a task that they do. That can be a very simple first step where they just create something like a concept map. MindMeister is really great. So one thing when you do work with multiple devices, which is what I do, it's really great to be able to have a tool that's free and accessible in a lot of these devices. Microsoft, I already showed you that. OneNote, Google are both cross, you can use them in multiple devices, whether your student has a laptop, whether your student has a tablet, whether your student has an iPad, an iOS device, an Android, a smartphone, whatever it is that they have that they're able to access it. And so here, mindmaster.com is available on all devices, and its sole purpose is to get brainstorming. So the students can all work together, they can contribute, and this could be for background research. You can give them a topic, and then each of them can take that topic somewhere else. That is important to note. So with some of these free tools, they're limited. So for example, with this one, you only get three maps for free. For me, that's not such a big deal, only because we don't do a mind map each activity. You know, we'll do it in different ways. So for me, the 3 is pretty good for me. And also, if you are rotating it, let's say if you work with small groups or pairs, then one of them can use one of their maps, and then the others won't. But it is important to note that Onenote has multiple things that you can do. It's what I use instead of Padlet. I love Padlet, but once again, you only get 3. So if you want something that's going to be more long-term, so different from something like MindMeister that I might only use once with students, is Onenote. Onenote I use multiple times. I need something like that multiple times. I used to use Padlet all the time. That was my favorite tool. But now, you know, it's not free anymore. So Onenote's a really good option. The great thing about Onenote that Padlet doesn't have, it's not as pretty, but it's a little messy sometimes. But one thing it does have is color coding of sticky notes. So you can do something like, let's say you're using as a back channel, you can add, the instructor can be like, for example, blue. And then everything that's blue, they know that's the instructors. And this, they can choose different colors that they want, and that can represent things. So for example, let's say you're doing questions and answers, you're having a discussion. So you can do something like that as well. Like, for example, you can do, you know, a green for questions, a red for answers. So that can be, you can organize it with the color coding. They do have some backgrounds that you can do, so that way right here you can see it has quadrants. So if you're doing something like a Frero model, if you're doing something with boxes, which I do a lot, then that's a way to do that as well. Studo is really good. You can launch a classroom, and it's basically an interactive whiteboard. You can add images, you can add colors, you can add shapes, so you can do things where you actually design. Allapp.com, another option. It's a lot like Studo. So these are a bunch of the whiteboards where you can do a lot of different things. So I think that that's important as well. Thank you. And Peggy just put down Padlet Ink, so some of the newest features of Padlet and that you can use as well, and some of their updates. So here you can embed links, so that's really great as well. I'm not going to show you every single one of them. There's actually tons of them, but the great thing is it does have a chat box. Sometimes these kind of tools, you might say, hey, well, can't you do that on Google Docs or Google Draw? Some of these tools like Allapp and Studo just are user-friendly, and they make it easier to be able to do this. Tweedla, what I really love about Tweedla, I've mentioned it for years. Well, the great thing is it's lasted over 10 years, so that's great. You don't have to register or sign up. See, notice how they'll just say guest 7324. Students can create their own type of Tweedla, and then they can use audio, so they can also use voice while they are also putting in their ideas. They can draw, they can add shapes, they can add images. So there's so many activities that you can do with that as well. Oh, and then TP has put in some different ways that she's used Onenote as well. So I think that's really good. And OneNote. So thank you for those examples. Video conferencing. So at some point in time, if you've ever done a collaboration project, and I know Tiziana and TP have for sure, there's always where it works out if you use something like Skype or a way to be able to chat with the other person that you're collaborating with. And so it's good to develop those skills with students now to be able to work on projects together. So it's a lot of times in my class, they're not doing the collaboration. Sometimes after they've done an activity like a mind map or something, and they're able to see how collaboration works, then it they'll do a project, and that project will require them to collaborate at different times. So if you're able to have your students be able to do this, they at home, then they may need something like Appear In, which is an iOS app as well. They're able to talk to each other. They're able to, it's sort of like having a web room like this, except it only has a limited amount of people that are able to be part of it. So it's good for small groups, like 4, 3, something like that. And it's a great way for them to be able to communicate and things like that. And yes, Appear In is a nice alternative to Google Hangouts. I find it a little bit safer because you don't have to do the whole social network. You don't have to go through YouTube if you're doing the Hangouts on air. It's really simple and easy to use. You just have that one room. It gives you a room that you can name, and you can use that room forever. So I think mine's is appear.in/Shell or something. And every time you go in, that's my room. And so we can always meet up that way. So that works really well. And education.microsoft.com. Skype has a lot of different things. You can use this on the browser now. That's what's really great about Skype. You no longer have to download it. I still do. It works really well when you're working on a mobile device. In fact, I've had that a lot of, what I really like is that it's so good, the sound quality, that I do a lot of interviews. People interview me a lot about the things that I do. And often for podcasts, they'll have me call through Skype on my mobile because that's how good it is. And the sound quality works really well. The great thing is that they also have intuitive tools. So they use artificial intelligence as well. On the Skype app, you might not realize that, but it'll translate. So if you're talking to someone in another language, for example, if I'm talking to Antipi and she's using Greek and I'm using English, I can actually have everything translated in Greek, and it gets smarter and smarter, the translator. So the more that I use it and it translates, the more it gets that right. So in the beginning, it's like most translation, it's not perfect, but then when it figures it out through our conversations, it'll get smarter and smarter to where it learns the language and we're able to communicate more effectively. And so that's a really incredible, cool feature that I think is really awesome on Skype. You can do the other things. You can use video. You can have emojis. I mean, you can just do so many things, share documents. It's really wonderful. And then, of course, there's Google Hangouts, which I tend to use quite a bit still. If you're only using Hangouts and not the YouTube Live version or Hangouts on Air, it's sometimes called too. And it does both on YouTube. On YouTube, it says Hangouts on Air sometimes, and a lot of times it says YouTube Live. So they're still working on the language of it. But when you use just the Hangouts and not Hangouts on Air, you can have a video of 25. That means it's not going to record it. You can use voice, you can use video. There's so much ways that you can collaborate. Now, if you use Hangouts on the Air, that number is limited. You can't have 25. So that's just something to note. So what are some activities you can do with all of these? These are really cool free tools. By the way, all of them are really, really great. Okay, and TP just showed us another one called Bigbluebutton.org. I have not used that before, so I will look forward to testing that out. And you don't have to register. That's really cool. So now I'm going to have to check that out. But these are some of the things you can do. You can get students to work on a podcast or a newscast together. So basically, they're just doing a video show where they report something on a video, an event, news, item, story. Or the same thing with a podcast. A podcast is just audio, an audio version of that. They can peer edit each other's work. They can do collaborative storytelling where they all create a book together. They can do a class textbook together. Let's say they're responsible for a chapter. You give each one. That's a popular thing I do with my students. Each one of them is in charge of a chapter in the textbook. They work in groups of 4, and they come up with a unit there, how they're going to teach that particular unit. And they come up with, making it more interactive with technology, the activities, the assessments. They come up with everything. They become the teacher. So that's something that they can do with these collaborative tools. They can come up with a magazine where they each contribute an article. The great thing is with something like Google, you can send them a template and they can just, they know what section they get to fill out in that template. They can create a class newspaper. They can create their own business. Let's say I've done that with some of my students before, especially with the unit on restaurants. They learn about food, vocabulary. They learn about, phrases within the restaurant. And so part of that is getting them to create their own restaurant. And so they work in pairs together. They decide the name of the restaurant, what type of cuisine. It can be any culture, any cuisine. They decide the food, the prices. They have to do research on, how much you should charge and all of this stuff. So they learn some math skills with that as well. And then they create a menu. So they can use all of these collaborative tools to be able to collaborate and then also to create that menu, to create that business plan. They come up with a blueprint of how they're going to lay out the restaurant. So all of that is really, really wonderful. Some collaboration apps before we go ahead and end the webinar. Some cool things now you can do collaboratively. So it doesn't matter if you have an iOS device or an Android device. If you download the free Line app by Google, then you can draw together an augmented reality with your friends or students. You can do things like play tic-tac-toe together. You just put your phones next to each other. So if I have, for example, Peggy George has an Android and I have an iPhone, if we have this app together, and it's free, by the way, we just put them next to each other, and then Peggy and I can play tic-tac-toe in our surroundings. It's called augmented reality. It shows you where you can draw together. We can draw scenes together. Let's say that we want to do graffiti. But the great thing about this graffiti is that this graffiti does not stay on the building. So we can create something together as well. And so that can be really, really fun and cool to try. It's free. I definitely think that you should try this out. So a lot of teachers will use Voxer and Slack or other alternatives. These are really great apps. I think they're great for older, so if you teach business English, Slack is a really great tool to be able to use because a lot of businesses actually do use Slack, and that's their collaboration tool. You can share files, you can text with each other, you can have different threads. I mean, so there's a lot of options. I use Voxer a lot. That's how I get pretty much a lot of things done. This is how I get to speak with my editor, my publishers, with Path to Scope EDU teams, with there's so many different groups. Recently, I participated in EdCamp Voxer or EdCamp Voice, but it's all on Voxer. So there's so many ways that you can use Voxers. You can add images. It works a lot like WhatsApp and some of those other tools that are messaging tools, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, all of those you can use to collaborate. So in the end, one of the Kagan key principles or key items is as reflection evaluation. So usually with students, not only do the class itself evaluates whatever project, presentation, mind map, whatever it is, the whole entire class will evaluate. And this is done anonymously, so the others don't know what the others are doing. And I find that this is really important. I know who the student is, but they don't know themselves. The reason why this is important is because if they think their other friends are going to use it, they're not going to be honest with their evaluations. As it is, the first time they evaluate, they're way too nice on everything because they aren't used to, they don't realize that critical thinking and feedback, and they got to get used to that. So you have to give them time to evaluate. And so they get to decide. I usually ask questions like, okay, what were the top 3 things? If they're doing, for example, commercials on an app they invented, let's say that they made a pretend app, or then they have to decide which product they would buy and why, which commercial they liked more. And so I ask questions like that, but I also ask them, okay, how did you think about the design of the product and the presentation? Did you think the speaker did well? So I'll ask things like that in a whole class evaluation. A group evaluation, they get to give their peers, and you usually have to rate peers. You usually have to give, who did the best to the lowest. That doesn't mean they get a low grade. It's just saying, who they believe contributed. Some will say, no, we all contributed equally, and that's okay as well. And then the self-evaluation for them to look and say, okay, how can I improve being a better team member next time? How can I be better at group work? So this is what it looks like. So for one of the activities on Learning on the Go, they have this. They have the group name. This is with a whole class evaluation. It's an app that was invented. They have to put the group name. They write the, whoever was part of that group, and then they rate it. Okay, so they have the little rate, and then they give the reasons why they gave that rating. Here are some more. This is for different peer and self-evaluations from alex.state.al.us. You can find all of these if you go to shellyterrell.com/collaboration. Sorry, shellyterrell.com/collaboration. No, I didn't. Sorry, it's because I said that word, Alex. So she thought I said something, her name. I didn't call you. Sorry, that's my voice system. My Amazon voice. And then beware of international differences. So if your students go beyond working just in the classroom and they actually work as with others and it's a global project, then that's a little bit different. You have to make sure that they are aware of communication, cultural, of each other's culture, so they don't offend each other. They also have to, you teach them things about being a global collaborator, and that's really important as well. Be aware of time zones. I use time and date. That's what I think is a really wonderful scheduler. There's so many out there. There's Calendly, there's Doodle, there's so many of those different tools now, and I know because I get sent one every day, a new one. So there's Google Calendar has done a lot to be able to help with this as well. So you can check out those tools and see which works best for you. WorldTimeBuddy.com, you can even get the app, and it's a really great way to be able to look at different time zones. It's really simple and fast. You just go, especially, and then you'll be able to see what it is in that other time. So that's about it. You can find all the resources, a lot of things we talked about at shellyterrell.com/collaboration, including these slides. And you can watch all of our webinars, recordings. We have hundreds of them on our YouTube channel where you can subscribe, youtube.com/